We just had our first Duo Cash Cup of the season, and we finally got our first chance to see how some of these EU pros are going to compare on NA. Unfortunately, Mr. Savage and Mongrel not even making the first finals. Clix and Veno doing extremely well, but then unfortunately falling off towards the end. I also want to recap what is going on with the EU now with all these big players going, who is taking over and who's filling these spots. And I want to talk about why I think next week could be a massive update, including huge nerfs to the Nitro Fist. So there's a lot to talk about. Let's jump into it. Let's kick off talking about NA, because with all of the EU players coming over, everyone's been talking about how well are they actually going to do. So before we even talk about finals, let's talk about some of the teams who unfortunately didn't even make it to the finals. The biggest one being Mr. Savage and Mongrel. Now, I want to give full credit to Mr. Savage and Mongrel here. They should have qualified for the finals. Now, a lot of pros will tell you they got super unlucky, or, you know, we had the worst luck. We crashed in game 4. We died to this in game 2. We died to hackers. Mr. Savage and Mongrel were well and truly on pace to qualify. They had like 3 or 4 games left in their back pocket with like 15 minutes to go. Unfortunately, Savage and Mongrel go into a game. Savage doesn't load in. It's not his PC. It's a Fortnite bug. They think it's fine. We got plenty of time. We only need like 15 points to qual. Let's back out and go again. They go into another game. Unfortunately, Savage does go down in a spawn fight. They have a chance to potentially leave early and instantly get into another game, but Mongrel tries to play it out and reboot. It doesn't work, but it's fine. Again, they still have plenty of time for one more game. Then Savage bugs again. He tries to get into the queue. It puts Mongrel in queue. It doesn't put Savage in. It's a complete bug, and they don't get into the game. I honestly don't even know what to say at this point. Savage's luck when it comes to queuing into tournaments is insane. These are all Fortnite bugs. They're not specific to a certain player. If a player tweaks their PC or does something that causes it to crash all the time, you can blame them. But the struggles that Savage and Mongrel have, I swear, are just never their fault when it comes to queuing into games. So across the board, I wouldn't panic and say, oh my god, Mongrel and Savage doing terrible on NA. There's no reason they should have gone and started panicking. They both looked really good in solos. They looked really good in duos, and I would not be surprised at all if they make finals next week. Now, the next big one as well is obviously Pink. Pink has come on over to play with Mero, but sadly, Mero actually got into a car accident the day of Duo Cash Cup. As far as I've been able to find out, he's okay, but he wasn't able to play in the Duo Cash Cup, so Pink and him weren't able to play. Despite this, Pink did still almost qualify, but he also missed out. But again, for the main EU players that came over and weren't able to make it through, they're still looking pretty good. Now, Mixon and Blaha being the only other double EU duo, I wasn't able to follow them too much because they weren't streaming, but they also weren't able to make finals, but we did still have a few of our big names. Taste and Eomzo still made final, Clix and Veno still made finals, and we also had Kylie and Vert. So a lot of our EU players still doing well, but some of the really big names did get a little bit unlucky. Now, let's jump into the finals. We had a very underrated duo taking it home, Batman Booga and Rapid. You probably heard about this duo. They made it to the last LAN event. They play super highly. I'm not shocked to see this duo doing well, but they have been pretty quiet the last few seasons. So I didn't have them picked to get a first place in the first Duo Cash Cup, but I'm very excited to see it. They're doing it with very, very consistent Fortnite. They had a 3rd, 7th, 3rd, 4th, 2nd, and then an 18th. So their last game being their worst, and they played really well. And they're not doing it from a super broken POI with, you know, abusing the new mythics or the new medallions. I mean, they're using gloves, but everyone's using the Nitro Fist. I'll talk about that a bit later in the video, but they did it from Research Rock. And if you don't know where that is, it's actually the little drop spot to the east of Brawler's Battleground. So all credit to them. They played extremely well and they deserve this win. In second place, we had Aviv and Booga, who did this from contested Classy Courts. So again, another team not just abusing the new medallions. And again, Booga and Aviv coming 3rd place the last FNCS. They played together the first one of this chapter. They then decided to split up after that 3rd place, which is kind of the Booga Classic, splitting up even after doing really well. Didn't do as well with Ages though, and now they're back and looking very, very good. In 3rd place, we have a duo you probably didn't expect to see because they're not even a real duo. Skittles and Khanada came in 3rd place. Skittles currently has no duo. He's looking to find someone, and Khanada is playing with Skittles because Cooper is actually on vacation. Now, they did do it from Khanada and Cooper's main drop spot, the Nitro Drone, which, if you guys have seen it, it's absolutely absurd. They are getting the mythic crossbow every single game with the infinite ammo medallion, and when you combine the two, it is just absurd. I think 4 or 5 of the wins today on NA actually went to the team that got the bow. I know what you're thinking, but Khanada isn't contested and he didn't win every game. Well, Khanada unfortunately started a little beef with Peterbot after he did this to him in the 2nd game.
Get the f out! You dog bitch! You're fucking ass, bro. I hate this shit, bro. Dog shit, man. What are you trying to pull on us, man? What are you trying to pull, man? I hate this shit, bro. What are you guys doing, man? Why you keep selling, bro? Come on, you ugly fucks, bro.
Now, a lot of people weren't too happy about this, especially seeing as Khanada and Skittles did kind of just abuse the fists, which is upsetting a lot of people. And it obviously upset Peterbot and Pollo as well, because they made it their mission for the next few games to completely target Khanada. And just in the very next game, this happened.
On who?
Another one.
I'm jumping him.
I gotta fall, Khanada. So,
Wow.
he's on the ramp. Crack Tiger.
No, man.
Yeah, of course,
Wow,
of
you
course
gotta
I said
fall.
no, fuck.
No, die to fall. No. No, die to fall. This kid thinks he's good. He just died. Wow, GG, bro.
And in the very next game, Peterbot and Pollo actually took the fight straight to Khanada, not contesting him on spawn, but instantly rushing after they looted their drop, since they are dropping at the rig, so they're really nearby. They pushed in because Khanada and Skittles have to sit and wait to capture the Nitro drone to then get the loot out of it. They have to sit there and just wait because the boss doesn't actually spawn. So they have plenty of time to push over from Redline Rig and get in there. They ended up stealing the crossbow and the medallion, and again, they absolutely wreaked havoc. As soon as Peterbot and Pollo had both these items, they were extremely dominant, and that is why Skittles and Khanada didn't actually win this cash cup. If you look at their placements, they got a fourth, then they had the 35th and the 38th at the hand of Peterbot, then the 6th and the 1st. So when Khanada and Skittles made it off spawn with their loot, they absolutely dominated, which I imagine Khanada and Cooper would do as well. This bow has to get nerfed. It is just insane. I know what you're thinking. We went the whole season last season without the Grimgate medallion being nerfed, but I just have a feeling they're gonna want to nerf this. It's just, we saw Peterbot actually take the strategy one step further. In his game, when he took the medallion, he actually managed to run double crossbow. So he had 2 infinite crossbows that he can shoot every like 0.1 second and reload in like half a second. It was just absurd, and I just don't think Fortnite actually thought this would play out anything like this. So I fully expect to see this item get vaulted or nerfed. I think the easiest way is just making it not replenish rocket ammo. That wouldn't affect pubs at all. It wouldn't affect ranked. It would only affect really high level competitive, and I think most people agree it would be a balanced change. I don't know about you, but if you verse someone using the infinite crossbow, it's not a very fun experience. Now, Peterbot and Pollo, after all of that, with their super aggression and actually managing to win 2 games this tournament, they did end up in 4th place. They started off a little bit slow. They actually had a 0 elim 36th and a 0 elim 34th while not being contested. They are dropping Redline Rig, so they're getting the mythic assault rifle and they're getting the constantly replenishing shield medallion. So that in the hands of Peterbot and Pollo is obviously absurd. I pick up the mythic AR and I feel like Peterbot, so I can't even imagine what Peterbot's aim looks like with it. They started slow and I started to see a bit of hate on social media saying he fell off. They got carried by the Grim Gate medallion. They're doing just fine. They're looking really, really good. And then we had our first EU showing by, I think, the most underrated EU player to come over, Kylie, playing alongside Vert and getting 5th place overall. Very, very impressive performance from, again, a team that I didn't really have too much expectations on. I've always held that Vert is one of the best solo players in NA. Being a little bit quiet depending on who he plays with. He kind of has big seasons, then kind of slows down a bit. But Kylie and Vert looking really solid. And they did it at a contested Mount Olympus. Again, not an incredibly strong drop. They managed to take down Chaos Gaming and Chance 5 out of the 6 games. And the game Chaos Gaming got out with, they just left with a bit of loot, and Kylie and Vert left with their loot. So doing really, really good, and so far EU's highest placing team, which I think shocked a lot of people. Especially if you consider the fact that Clix and Veno actually came out and won game 1. A lot of people extremely excited, myself included, a 4 elim win to then unfortunately have a pretty terrible tournament outside of this, finishing in 22nd. We then had Acorn and Cold, one of our FNCS champion teams. Acorn and Cold have gotten on their stream grind. It's super fun to watch this duo. They were having a bit of a mixed tournament. They didn't really seem to be enjoying how the Nitro Fist meta plays out, which I don't think anyone was. Again, we have a major game update coming out later next week on Thursday, and then we're also going to have an eval cup straight after that. This is the day before FNCS, and the leakers are talking about it being a major update. We're getting new items, new skins, a bunch of crazy stuff, and we are going to get some kind of balance changes. There's a very good chance we see some of the nerfs to the Nitro Fist, and I know you guys have seen the memes all over social media. Just adapt. I think at this point, if you played competitive or you watch competitive, you realize there really is no adapting. Even if you adapt and try to use the gloves, it is just an absolute nightmare. It is just full chaos and no one really knows what's going on. You guys know me. I want a crazy season. I want Hammer season. I keep talking about that. That was my last favorite season, and I think we can have that. So I don't want the gloves to just be vaulted, but I do want them to be nerfed. I've talked about it a whole bunch. There's a lot of ways to nerf them. You can just make it the punch takes a charge. You can reduce the hitbox of the punching so it's harder to hit people, reduce the range on it. You can make it so that when you punch, you don't jump forward so fast, so you're a little bit slower so people can hit shots on you. You can make it do less damage. There's so many things they can do. I don't want to see them vaulted, but I do really want to see them nerf it. Just going through the rest of the leaderboard for some of the other notable teams, we had the other LAN qualified team, Reet and Ritual, coming in 10th overall. Huge shout out to Victor V and Paper. They managed to finish 11th with realistically only 2 games played. They went down on spawn 4 out of their 6 games, trying to take a mid-map split from Centered and Walkers, and with the 2 games they made it, they got an 8 elim second and a 6 elim fourth. So if they can shape up their off spawn, they're looking really, really solid. Our other EU NA duo, Taste and Iomzo, that have probably the most amount of hype around them. A lot of people thinking this could be the FNCS win finally for Iomzo. They came 18th. It wasn't a super strong showing, but it wasn't terrible either. All right, let's talk about EU. Now, I saw a lot of people talking on social media about, oh, EU's so boring now, it's terrible, it's not even worth watching. And I think a lot of people are basing that because they looked at the top 50 qualified teams and just saw a bunch of people they didn't know and didn't see some of their favorite pros and thought, oh, EU's not worth watching anymore. Now, obviously, if you take players like Savage, Mongrel, you take Tayson, Pink, they're going to affect the content a little bit, and there's going to be some big names missing that you're hoping to see. But I do want to remind people that we just had DreamHack. It was a $250,000 tournament. We had 64 teams of 4 players go to this event, and about half of them were EU. Now, because of when DreamHack ended, the only way you could get home and play the Duo Cash Cup in time is if you literally left the night after DreamHack, which most players didn't. So some of the huge names you're missing, like Seti, like Marius, like Fredoxy, they're all still going to be playing EU for the rest of the season. They just missed this first Cash Cup. So don't panic if you watch the Cash Cup, or I'm not going to talk about a lot of the big teams here. They are still playing on EU. It's still going to be extremely exciting. We still have the last 10 spots to qualify for LAN. Now, one of the teams and the players, I should say, that went to DreamHack that still managed to get home for this was actually Teeny. Chap and Teeny winning it all on 364 points after Teeny just won DreamHack with his Falcon squad. So they won DreamHack. Teeny instantly flew home, qualified with Chap, and then won the Cash Cup. Now, remember, Chap's first grand finals was last season, and they came second, qualifying for the LAN. They are now potentially poised to go on and win yet again on EU. They're looking extremely dominant. They were playing very, very well. You give them an uncontested Mythic PY, and of course they're going to be that dominant. We did see a lot of other contested Mythic PYs get a little bit spicy. We had Swizzy and Vanyak taking on Mustache and Malabuka at Redline Rig. This one went a little bit messy for both of them. Our FNCS reigning champions, Swizzy and Vanyak, actually came in 10th overall, keeping Mustache and Malabuka into 22nd, which honestly is extremely difficult to do when you take the caliber of the team that both of them are. So they both did quite well. We did actually have Teeny and Chap being contested originally at the Nitro Dome by Podesai and Snazy, but the Frenchies decided to leave after a couple of games, and if Teeny and Chap keep this drop uncontested, they are most likely going to go on and win this FNCS. Now again, this is on the back of that Mythic Infinite Ammo bow. That's exactly what I talked about for Khanada's team. Obviously, I have a feeling that's going to get nerfed, but even if that does get nerfed, still having uncontested Nitro Dome and everything else it gives, I think is really, really good for both these duos. So we'll see if Chap and Teeny can keep up the pressure. CZB and Nathan actually came in second, a very underrated duo, and they're doing it out of Grand Glacier. Really not a notable drop whatsoever, so I was super excited to see them do extremely well. On EU, we also had Ping and Wox come in 3rd place overall. Again, they're doing this from contested lavish lair. So just like NA, we did have our mix of really high profile teams doing really well with the new POIs, but a lot of teams also doing very well with underrated drops. Predage and Radeon in 4th are doing it with kind of a mid-map drop where they drop on like the Salt Lake, kind of whatever you want to call that, in the middle of the map. So it's interesting to see, and I've talked about that a lot this season. You are going to see the teams that have already qualified for LAN, like Chap and Teeny, being able to lock down these really good POIs, because anyone who drops on them is going to risk not qualifying for LAN to a team that already has it. But you will start to see some of these huge contestations like Swizzy and Vanyak up against Mustache and Malabuka, because neither of them need to try to get a LAN spot because they're both already qualified. So I'm very excited to see how that storyline progresses on EU. We did have other big names missing, like Vidil wasn't playing with Rezon because Rezon's on vacation. He was playing with Sato, still doing quite well. Sky and Scroller duo, I've been gassing up a lot, coming in 17th. But again, we were missing a lot of those big names. So I'll probably do a bigger EU recap next week when they're all home from DreamHack and actually playing.